All right, thanks everyone for joining our Lunch and Learn. We'll go ahead and get started. Uh, Everyone, when they join, will be muted so that we can minimize the disruptions that happen during the presentation. If you have a question, feel free to put that in the chat. What we'll do is we'll continue to monitor chat and make sure that you get your question answered. I think that's it. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Master of Ceremonies, Mike Mayo.
Thank you so much, Yuli. Appreciate it. My name is Mike Mayo. I'm a collaboration account executive for Cisco, covering the state of Hawaii and the state of California agencies. And it's been about 10 years. And when I started with Cisco and collaboration, it was a very different time, pre-COVID. My world revolved around, phones and, on-premise phone systems and, WebEx meetings, that we would do online. And this was, this new thing. And it's crazy for me to think how far we've come. Now looking at when I talk about collaboration, I'm talking about so many different connected systems. And I'm excited today to be able to talk about what we're doing with buildings and what we're doing with connecting HVAC systems to collaboration, right? We've got sensors built into our devices that are, allowing us to control parts of the room, understand what's happening with the building, humidity, temperature, all these different sensors now we have built into our devices. So collaboration today is not just about phones for me anymore. This is about a much, much larger picture. And I'm excited for the conversation today, for Lori to be able to talk more about what we're doing with all of these connected technologies. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Lori, and thank you all for attending today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the intro. And again, my name is Lori. I'm part of the Future Proof Workplaces team. And I also am joined here by Ross Sweetzir, who is our technical solution designer supporting Future Proof Workplaces. We are, as previously mentioned, we're very, very excited. We definitely do want to partner with you to help the state to really be able to start thinking about how we can best optimize that physical footprint and being able to provide many different types of measurable data, whether it's environmentals or sustainability or decarbonization, so that you have that data readily available for reporting or for different types of compliance. So today we have got just a few slides. We don't have too many slides, but we did want to take an opportunity to be able to do some demos. So we do want to talk about how we can leverage all of this wonderful hardware and infuse it into Cisco Spaces. So we're going to demo Cisco Spaces as well as some customized dashboards that we are able to share with you within the Splunk dashboard to support various types of environmental data and POE data. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Again, feel free to ask questions. I personally don't know, guys, if questions are being asked as I'm going through, so just feel free to interrupt and we will definitely address whatever questions come our way. So with that, let's go ahead and get started, okay? So one of the first things I wanted to talk about is, let me kind of move this around. Oh. Okay, okay. So one of the first thing I wanted to talk about, it really is around Cisco's vision around future-proof workplaces. And when we started looking at our real estate at Cisco, it was like post-COVID, we really started taking a very strategic look around looking at that real estate with intent and with purpose. And yes, ultimately, we agree that it's the people that bring folks into the buildings, into the office, but it's really also an opportunity for us to talk about the technology as well as the environment, so that way we can enrich that experience and get people to want to come back into the office. And so There has been a study, a very interesting study that was done back in 2025, and it was this hybrid work study that was across like 2,000 different employees. It was across many different global markets. And what was interesting, there was a recent statistic that showed about 72% of companies are having office mandates that are now in place. So it really is important for us to now start thinking about what should that workplace look like and how can we optimize that experience. But what's interesting is that many customers might not necessarily know where to start, and that might be because they haven't necessarily kind of thought through what should that employee experience or that guest experience look like. Or another example is occupancy, not really having the data to be able to understand true occupancy. And to be honest with you, long are the days of your badge in and badge out data. And the reason for that is when you've got badge in, badge out data, it really is simply taking a note of somebody coming into a building, but it doesn't take into account if there's people that are piggybacking off of those individuals. And it's just at that entrance into that building. But what was really amazing, we're going to talk about today is, wouldn't it be great to be able to understand what that utilization is across the building, across the floor, across different types of conference rooms? And so we're transitioning, we're starting to think about, yes, it is a proof point to have that badge in data, but we're able to now become much more granular to be able to start pulling telemetry data at a conference room level all the way up to a building and campus level. And the last thing I wanted to call out is that with this whole new AI transformation, it's those conversations, the data around AI is brought into every single business conversation. And it's so important for us to be able to have that telemetry data now. We need to have that telemetry data now. And what would be so North Star is if we can start getting that telemetry data to start making autonomous decision making. And that's really an opportune area that we're starting to move forward, to move towards to rather. So one of the things, like just to kind of bring it all back, Cisco really believes in driving these four things on the bottom where we're able to drive an amazing experience. We want to make sure these offices are not mandatory, but rather based off of not just the people, but the environment and the technology. It becomes a magnet. People want to come back. And that we leverage our integrated cross architectural technology and ensure that wherever you are, whether you're in the office or if I'm working from home like I am today versus my friend that's working in a coffee house, that collaboration can happen anywhere and everywhere, and that experience is the same. So I also want to just like take a couple minutes and share with you that Cisco Spaces, and we're going to talk more about that in a minute, is become FedRAMP authorized. So they are ATO approved now, and we have been working with the GSA as a sponsoring agency to support the FedRAMP authorization process. And so some of the things that they have been very, very interested in trying to understand is really around space utilization. And a lot of the FedRAMP agencies today are actually required to be able to showcase what that utilization of that real estate is. And so they're interested in space utilization, occupancy, as well as being able to understand our navigation and kiosks. The other thing I wanted to share with you, because we are now seeing Cisco Spaces as a FedRAMP ATO ready, we are working with a plethora of other agencies, government agencies that are on the .gov cloud environment, and working through deals with them as we speak because of the fact that they have been recently ATO certified. All right. So what I also wanted to kind of call out today is a couple different things. Is that, this is not what we're going to be talking about today. It's not a science project. This is really illustrating how Cisco took this opportunity to look at smart buildings and has been able to do that at a global level, as you can see here. But we're able to do it because we had the right set of data, and we were able to reinvest or divest with intention. And one of the things that we looked at as we were looking across our portfolio is real estate facilities that had less than 25% authorization. I'm sorry, less than 25% utilization. So that, for example, was a criteria that we looked at. Or it could be a situation where we had numerous offices within a metro area. But the point here is that we're looking at this at a global level, and we are building out smart buildings. A great example, I don't know how many of you have been able to visit our different offices, but New York Penn 1 is a great example of a smart building, and we've been able to reduce that by 25%. And by doing that, we've been able to save over 43% in energy savings. And it is 100% power over Ethernet. It's got occupancy that's been delivered throughout the entire Penn 1 office. And it's just a real good example of where we've been able to really optimize on efficiency as well as seeing some cost reductions. So you might be thinking, okay, well, how does this all work? And where do we start? And what's that secret sauce, or what's that equation? And there's a couple things I want to talk about on this slide. And we definitely take a cross-architecture solution approach. And we truly believe at Cisco that we want to continue to double down in your existing hardware. So if you've got networks such as your switches that support PoE, or if you've got Wi-Fi APs, whether they're Wi-Fi 6 or 6E or Wi-Fi 7, or a plethora of different types of collaboration video endpoints, we should have a conversation. And the reason for that is because you've already got existing hardware. And what we do is we use that existing hardware to turn them into sensors. We take those sensors, so it becomes like a dual purpose. Think of it that way. And we take all that telemetry data from these different sensors that I've just kind of outlined, and we infuse it into Cisco Spaces. And Cisco Spaces is a location-based analytical platform that allows us to really understand how well are we utilizing our real estate. The other thing I kind of want to hone in on here is it's so important when we're thinking about the platform that I do understand and I respect the fact that today's audience is primarily more on the networking and the IT side. But man, this is when we start talking about smart buildings, this is an opportunity to expand that conversation. And the reason why I'm saying that is we really should be thinking about how do we converge IT with OT. The reason for that is because as we talk about OT, and when I refer to OT, I'm thinking like your real estate, your facilities. These different lines of business are going out and purchasing siloed solutions, and they don't understand that there is a solution that we can provide that is in one glass pane. And this is exactly what you see on this particular slide. And by converging IT with OT, you eliminate all those additional siloed solutions, as well as the complexity for IT to have to manage all those siloed solutions, as well as the additional costs around hardware and software subscription and gateways and so on and so forth. So by looking at this from a one platform solution across all those different lines of businesses, it really allows you to open the doors to really have that North Star of a smart building. That's where the true value comes in. And you're going to hear more about that once I hand over the reign to Ross as he starts talking about the ability to leverage power over Ethernet. All right. This slide is busy and it's supposed to be busy. And what we're trying to illustrate here is that, look at this. We've got all these different types of hardware that we've been able to turn into a sensor. So you've got cameras that are able to pull floor occupancy. You've got Wi-Fi that is able to do people counting or occupancy at a building level. Or on the right-hand side, you've got the room bars or the boards that are able to pull telemetry like around people count or ambient noise or some of the environmental air quality. This gives you an indication of some of the different hardware that we can use to pull telemetry data, again, that dual purpose, and infuse in Cisco spaces. My last slide, and what I wanted to showcase here is the fact that when you go into a lobby, for example, like a Pen 1 lobby, you walk in and you literally don't even realize that you're surrounded by all this technology. But the technology is there, and that technology allows us to do things like measuring our sustainability around PoE shading or PoE lighting. It also gives us an opportunity, as you can see here, pull occupancy from our APs. And you could do this at a floor level, you could do it at a building level, or you could even do it down to a conference room level. Or if you look right here, you've got this board. And on this board, this gives you an opportunity to really understand where you are from a contextual perspective in comparison to the entire floor plan. And that is really cool because if you also want to book a room or reserve a desk, you can do that all from this front lobby. And we're going to demo that later today. Other things are being able to measure circadian light levels from our PoE, as well as air quality and ambient noise. This is just simply looking at some of the environment controls, like from a lobby perspective. You can do the same if you're looking at a conference room. And we're not going to do that necessarily here, but you get the idea of the different types of use cases that we can drive. And what I thought I would do is hand it over to Ross to be able to talk about how this can all happen under the hood from a PoE perspective. Ross, you there?
I'm here. Yeah, I'm talking to the muted screen. And so like I'm going to race through these because I think that in some cases demos can be way more powerful. But if you imagine, as we consider, I'll call it energy networking, there was a time when there was no way that phones or closed circuit television, what we would call security cameras today, would ever be connected to the IT network. We had organizations operationally like fight tooth and nail against any kind of convergence in those spaces. And now, digital phone systems pretty much don't exist, or if they exist, we're looking for strategies to get rid of them as fast as we can. The security camera solutions, as an example, may have gone into, I'm going to say, some form of air gap network, but no one is running coax cable for security cameras with separate power cable. And so if we think about the why, it's because delivering power and signaling on two separate cable paths costs twice as much to install. And so as we look to the increasing capability of PoE and our ability, for instance, to drive 90 watts of power today versus 30 watts of power, 10 years ago, there's a substantial number of new things that we can do to deliver the power for. And so lighting, overhead variable air volume controls, and a number of other things become obvious choices. If we move to the next slide, Laurie, the idea here is that if we can use a single type of cabling for a number of different use cases, one, we reduce the complexity, and two, we reduce the expense of the installation. And so when you first talk to operations teams, facilities teams, real estate teams about what we're proposing, their responses are typically, oh, that's way too complicated, or it's different, or we don't understand it, or we don't know how the code applies. And our role here is to help you at IT be a hero with those teams to show how this can actually work. And I want to be clear, like, this is not like something for the big city. This is for any facility, location, space that you have today where there might be a renovation that you just can't afford because the electrical lighting costs are going to put things through the roof from a price perspective. And we have published case studies. One that I love to refer to is Clark County Health in Wyoming, where they discovered they could replace lights for less than the cost of just paying for travel for electricians to site, because they were so far away from a location where cost-effective electricians existed. And so literally IT took on lighting inside their healthcare facilities out of necessity. They couldn't afford to pay for electrician travel time anymore. If it's okay, Laurie, I think I'm going to move to a couple of different dashboards, because Laurie talked a little bit about, so I'm just going to share and call a little bit about the telemetry your devices are creating. And by the way, this dashboard is under construction, but it's always under construction. And I'm always reflecting on feedback from customers. The reason I've got this like broken attention mark at this moment is because I've been working with the collaboration BU. And when Laurie said double down on your existing hardware, this is a perfect example. Today, the device I'm talking to you on, it can measure the ambient light because it literally uses it to control an aperture, but we don't collect the telemetry from the ambient light that you can use as a customer. And so the business unit is working on adding that software feature into our WebEx environment so that when the device generates that value, you can report on it. Now, why is that important? Because ambient light lets you control how bright the light is overhead, but maybe also gives you information about whether we should open it or close window coverings. And so without having to put an expensive third-party sensor in a room where you already have a collaboration endpoint, we're going to save customers the cost of doing that and provide the value of adding that. So today, what are we looking at? Well, we're looking at things like ambient temperature. And so I can look at these different offices, and I've just used, to be fair, this is like my office and a couple other coworkers' offices. And poor Jessica in Madrid doesn't know that I haven't renamed her home office yet. But the idea here is that this is data that's being generated by our office. Now, mine is the one that's really cold because I live here in Canada. And so at the moment, the temperature is about 20, and I'll just put this into, pardon my, as a Canadian, I can say this, right? I'm allowed to say I'm going to put it in freedom units. And now it's 68.5. I got a couple of smiles there. Thank you. I hope that was okay. Maybe not as many as I should, but the idea here is that temperature, humidity, even TVOC values are coming from devices that are in the space, and then ambient noise. You know, that like these values come from, you know, maybe there was the dog barking excitement at this point, but like clearly they're tied to things like occupancy or the lawnmower getting run last night, maybe not at 12 in the at midnight, and so just the key here is that if we look at places like California, understanding things like the TVOC or the Indoor Air Quality Index may not even be optional. So you may have facilities teams right now struggling to report on a number of different values. And what I'm showing you is that we don't really care if it's our sensor, someone else's sensor, or a combination of our device and other sensors in the room, we can help you dashboard and understand what does the indoor air quality or room comfort of the spaces that you have look like. More importantly, we can present it in a dashboard or a view or a report like this that doesn't require the teams that are interested in it to log into a separate IT tool like WebEx Control Hub to see these values. The next, if I go to the next dashboard, this is another example of like, what does that view mean? And so this is a DC microgrid that I'm showing you live power consumption on a DC microgrid in a small scale. And so we have the initial power ingest, which in this case happens to be 3 phases of AC power, but then that power is distributed as high voltage DC fault managed power across the building envelope. And the idea here is that we can deliver that power with one point of conversion between the grid and the delivery to the end device. And so across that environment, we know exactly how many watts of power are being input into the system. And so the big fat line, the lighter colored big fat line, is the capacity for that circuit. And then the bright green line shows current consumption as an example. And so imagine where you can provide end-to-end visibility to an operations team to show where that power is being consumed, right down to the light, right? So in this particular case, this light is consuming 22 watts on a 90 watt channel as an example. So again, this is the kind of thing that a facilities and operations team might be looking at from a sustainability perspective. And I've got another slide, if I move forward, that shows this in terms of the Northern and Southern California wholesale prices for energy. And by the way, one of the reasons why the cost window is 0 is because consumption during the day in California, based on wholesale pricing, is actually really good. There's a solar over provisioning typically, and so those negative prices, prices at 0, are flagged based on midday solar oversupply as an example. So I can show that we're consuming 4 kilowatts of energy, but because the office is open during a time of oversupply, with the right connectivity, you may be able to power your lights, computers, other things at no cost. More importantly, there's distribution loss in any system, but I know exactly how much loss I have in this system. So if I go back to the previous space, I know at every point in the system how much power is being transmitted and how much power is being received. And so I can look at longer links possibly and understand that resistance in the cable is resulting in a delta between what's transmitted and what's received of 19 watts as an example. More importantly, I can know that the IT infrastructure is using 12% of the power overhead, that lighting is 25%, that collaboration endpoints and collaboration devices are 21%, all of which I think is important for you maybe to understand better from a sustainability perspective. Where is our big load to look at? So if you discover that lighting is larger than you expect it to be, maybe there's an opportunity there to address that. By the way, these come in as a result of us knowing at the switch port exactly what the device is. So some of these devices that are using more than 50% of the power available on that link, in this case, let's say 23 watts on a 30 watt service. The reason that we know all of these things is simply because the switch port itself is reporting exactly how much power is being consumed. And I'll just move on to, from an operations perspective, It's probably not important from a security camera. And keep in mind, again, this is a live demo environment, but the camera's seen 80 unique or distinct people. This particular camera as an example. But the thing that's probably more important is how are rooms being used. And so in this particular case, if we have home offices that are designed for one person that we regularly see two people in, we can't really change that. But if we have offices that are designed for 8 or 9 or 10 or 15 people, and I'm just gonna increase this so that we can actually see some spaces that were occupied in Europe. So this happens to be a demo device in the London office where that office or that space is designed for 10 people, and it at times it's designed for 8 people. At times it had 10 people in it, which lets us know that the space is over capacity. And so all of these things reflect back to what Lori said, which is, badge and data is great, but isn't it better to be able to understand clearly how this space is being used or leveraged? I don't know if it's time, Lori, if we want to move back to the spaces floor plan demo, but I think that when you look at this, on my dashboard, well, that's neat. But the top-down view or the 3D rich maps that we use in our environment for the delivery of a spaces view is also incredibly powerful.
Yeah, for sure. Before I do that, do you want me to open it up and just see if there's any questions or comments before we go into the 3D rich map?
I just asked Lori, there are no questions at this time.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Julie. Thank you. Okay, so what we thought would be really cool is to kind of share with you our 3D rich map. And this 3D rich map is pulled from the CAD facility maps. And what we do is we put it into our engine and essentially are able to turn it into this 3D view. And what this does is, if you recall when I shared with you walking into a lobby, gives you that opportunity to go up to a navigation board and be able to see where you are within the context of the entire floor. And right now, what we're doing is we're demoing this Cisco San Francisco second floor. And what you can see here is it gives you areas of interest, whether it's restrooms, cafeterias, stairs, and elevators, and you can click on these to be able to see where they are within the map. But what's also really cool, it gives you an opportunity to see, okay, well, what's available and where can I go ahead and book a conference room? And what you see is for example, some green rooms that are available. So if I'm over here, it states you are here, and let's just say we want to book this Civic Center. I see it's available, and what I can do is simply hold that room. As soon as I hold the room, you can see that it turned to blue, from green to blue, and I've got like 3 minutes to be able to walk over to that room. Now, one of the features is you can also do what we refer to as wayfinding. And wayfinding gives us that opportunity to be able to click on this, literally using your phone, your iPhone, and click on this QR code, and it will give you step-by-step directions based off of however direction you decide to get to that final destination. And this does not require you downloading any type of app. So it's an app clip, and it goes away once you're done using, getting to your final destination. Now, another feature you can see here on the top is the ability to look at the floor level and understand what are the environmentals. In addition, on the left-hand side, you can actually find particular types of rooms. So if you can see here, we've got 48 meeting rooms on the second floor, 17 are occupied, and 31 are available. But you can go ahead and reserve a particular room based off of your needs. So if you could base it off of the time, the number of people, and then it'll bring up whatever is available, and then you can go ahead and book that room for your needs. Any questions on this before I move into how do we pull our occupancy and how, like, what are some of those metrics that I'd love to be able to share with you.
Yep.
Any questions on this?
No questions.
Okay, okay. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at how we can pull the occupancy data. And so what I did is I went into the Cisco Spaces dashboard, and there is an icon called space utilization. And what you see here, and I really kind of just wanted to make sure that we had this all set up, but what you can do is you can look at it by campus, you can look at it by building, or you can look at it by floor. And when you look at it by floor for the Cisco San Francisco Building 12, you can see each of the different floors that are being occupied. And so if we click on like just the second floor, this gives you all that telemetry data that's being pulled from our APs. And when you are reviewing this on the top, it kind of gives you a summary of the different types of metrics. So what is the utilization right now in the month of May? And you can change this based off of whatever month you want to take a look at. Right now, let's just like keep it for the full month of May so you can take a look at a full view. You can also base it off of all days versus just weekdays. And we're in the month of May, it was utilized 51.4%. And the utilization of the rooms were 49.4%. Average time in those is 3.2 hours per day. And when you go down below, you're going to see a lot more metrics that is going to be very helpful for you to understand the usage and some patterns. So you can look at it by people count, and it's broken out throughout each of the weeks in the month of May. And you can clearly see Fridays, no one's really, the Fridays are very, very light days, and you can start seeing some trends in here where your busier days are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which is not necessarily a surprise. You also have your daily utilization. So what is that utilization across the full month as a percentage of capacity? And you can also look at this by time frame. And this is really helpful because you think about like cleaning and your maintenance and your cafeteria. This sort of information is very, very helpful to be able to have those conversations on when we should be really cleaning and when we should have additional facility operations to be able to staff. So that's another area of interest. I'm just going to skip down below. And I wanted to get to this. And so this right here gives you an overview of each of the different conference rooms as to what that utilization is by each of the different rooms on that floor. So if we're looking at, let's just say, Pier 39, we could see that it's being leveraged 75% of usage. But when you come down here and we look for Pier 39, oh, look at that. That room is used for up to 12 people, but on average, it's only being used on an average of 3 people. So this now starts asking the question, well, are we really optimizing all that real estate? And do we need to start tracking it a little bit more and be able to pull additional metrics and additional trending to see, is this perhaps like a one-off in the month of May, or is this consistent that we see across the full fiscal year? And what I find really, really helpful is looking at the occupancy by capacity, because this is where it becomes very, very real. And I'm looking on the right-hand lower column sides, where if I'm looking at a 10-person, if you look at this 10-person or higher, like if we got 50, 60, close to 70% is being utilized by 2 people or less. But when you're looking at 2-seaters and 3-seaters and even 4-seaters, the majority here is really the prime sweet spot. This is where we should be really starting to consider as to whether or not maybe we take some of these 10-seaters and not necessarily have all of them being a 10-seater, rather maybe thinking about taking it and breaking it down to like a 5-seater, so that way we better optimize the real estate. And on the bottom here, this gives you information that allows us to understand what has been reserved and booked, and what has not been booked, but it has been occupied. So these are more ad hoc. And what really has been ghosted. So we've got about 2.67% of conference rooms that were booked, but nobody necessarily used them. And we've got over like 47% in the month of May that was essentially idle. So it gives you different ways of looking at the data and being able to think about how we can use this data, and that data is being utilized by your real estate and your facilities, and that utilization information is being captured and used when we're talking about cleaning and maintenance, and how we staff our facility operations, and even our sustainability and our energy savings, and being able to really start thinking about, maybe this is a conversation. And even in this sort of situation within Cisco, this could be a conversation that we should continue to have to continue to optimize our real estate portfolio. I'm going to stop there and see if there's any questions. Is that making sense, or?
Yeah, I think it definitely is making sense. You have no questions at this time.
Okay. The only other thing that I thought would be really helpful to understand is that we do have a spaces ecosystem. That's one thing that we didn't necessarily touch on. And so we talked a little bit about how we've got use cases that are native to Cisco, but I did want to also elaborate for just a quick minute that Cisco Spaces does align, and we have worked very closely with the Cisco Spaces BE to continue to add additional ecosystem partners onto our IoT device marketplace. And what's really cool is if you have a chance to, or if you've got an interest of wanting to understand, well, what if we want additional type of use cases that Cisco doesn't necessarily want to invest in? We do have an IoT device marketplace where we've got over 50 plus ISVs that capture things like beacons and tags and lanyards and badges and portal beams. And it's important to know that within our device marketplace, you can actually go into this device marketplace and look at all the different types of devices. And one really cool thing is you can look at it by vertical. So we've got it all broken out by vertical. And if you click on workspaces, for example, you can see all the different types of use cases that we provide. So just know that in addition to the hardware that you already have that we can start having conversations around, if there's additional use cases that are of interest to you. For example, in the healthcare industry, that's a perfect example of, they've got infant protection tags that are used on infants. Well, that's not a business that Cisco wants to get into, but know that is there is an alignment that we work with, like a Contact IO, to be able to make sure that we've got these badges or these tags that are aligned into our Cisco Spaces ecosystem. And I think that's pretty much all that I've got that I really wanted to showcase at this point in time, Yuli. I don't know, I can open it up again to the floor and see if there's additional questions, or.
Yeah, if you have any questions before we wrap up, yeah, feel free to drop them in the chat. And we'll try and get them answered for you. But yeah, thank you, Laura. Really appreciate the presentation. Thank you, Ross, for sharing the information. I think the reason it's valuable is because I think we can all expect to see more of this coming. While we know that the IT team really doesn't drive these decisions, we do know that they will be a part of these decisions. And the hope is that when we come to your organization with the different stakeholders, it at least rings bells and say, okay, I remember Cisco sharing this with me. I've heard about it before, as opposed to it being completely new when those conversations happen. Yeah, so I'm looking, I don't see any questions from the presenters. So yeah, Lori, Ross, thank you again for your time. Really appreciate the information. We have it recorded. I'll send out the recording. And for the session next month, we'll be doing a Cisco Live recap. So you're more than welcome to join us in person if you like, or join us virtually. But yeah, thank you again for joining us at this Lunch and Learn.
Thank you.
Sure.